Mihir Yast, translated by James Darmesteter. Zero. May Ahura Mazda be rejoiced. Hashem Mohu, holiness is the best of all good. I confess myself a worshipper of Mazda, a follower of Zarathustra, one who hates the Dabas and obeys the laws of Ahura. For sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification unto Avanat, the holy and master of holiness, unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, who has 1,000 ears, 10,000 eyes, a Yazata invoked by his own name, and unto Brahma Havastra, be propitiation with sacrifice, prayer, propitiation, and glorification. Yata Ahuva Ario. The will of the Lord is the law of holiness. 1. Ahura Mazda spake unto Spitama Zarathustra, saying, Verily, when I created Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, O Spitama, I created him as worthy of sacrifice, as worthy of prayer as myself. Ahura Mazda. 2. The ruffian who lies unto Mithra brings death unto the whole country, injuring as much the faithful world as 100 evildoers could do. Break not the contract. I say word 2. O Spitama, neither the one that thou hadst entered into with one of the unfaithful, nor the one that thou hadst entered into with one of the faithful, who is one of thy own faith. For Mithra stands for both the faithful and the unfaithful. 3. Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, gives swiftness to the horses of those who lie not unto Mithra. Fire, the son of Ahura Mazda, gives the straightest way to those who lie not unto Mithra. The good, strong, beneficent, Pravashis of the faithful give a virtuous offspring to those who lie not unto Mithra. 4. For his brightness and glory I will offer unto him a sacrifice worth being heard, namely unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures. We offer up libations unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, who gives a happy dwelling and a good dwelling to the Aryan nations. Remember the 5 tribes, the Persians are one, and the Hindus are the other 4. 5. May he come to us for health. May he come to us for ease. May he come to us for joy. May he come to us for mercy. May he come to us for health. May he come to us for victory. May he come to us for good conscience. May he come to us for bliss. He, the awful and overpowering, worthy of sacrifice and prayer, not to be deceived anywhere in the whole of the material world. Mithra, the lord of wide pastures. 6. I will offer up libations unto him, the strong Yazata, the powerful Mithra, most beneficent to the creatures. I will apply unto him with charity and prayers. I will offer up a sacrifice worth being heard unto him, Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, with the ha'oma and meat, with the barasma, with the wisdom of the tongue, with the holy spells, with the speech, with the deeds, with libations, and with the rightly spoken words. Yenhe Hatam, all those beings of whom Ahura Mazda. 7. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, who is truth-speaking, a chief in assemblies, with 1,000 ears, well-shapen, with 10,000 eyes, high, with full knowledge, strong, sleepless, and ever awake. 8. I may occasionally leave out the number of the verse by accident. To whom the chiefs of nations offer up sacrifices as they go to the field against havocing hosts, against enemies coming in battle array, in the strife of conflicting nations. 9. On whichever side he has been worshipped first, in the fullness of faith of a devoted heart, to that side turns Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, with the fiend spiting wind. with the cursing thought of the wise. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 10. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. 11. Whom the horsemen worship on the back of their horses, begging swiftness for their teams, health for their own bodies, and that they may watch with full success those who hate them, smite down their foes, and destroy at one stroke their adversaries, their enemies, and those that hate them. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 12. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. 13. Who, first of the heavenly gods, reaches over the Hara, before the undying, swift-horsed sun, who, foremost in a golden array, takes hold of the beautiful summits, and from hence looks over the abode of the Aryans with a beneficent eye. 14. Where the valiant chiefs draw up their many troops in array, where the high mountains, rich in pastures and waters, yield plenty to the cattle, where the deep lakes with salt waters stand, where wide flowing rivers swell and hurry towards Ishkata and Pauruta, Mauru and Paroyu, the Gava, Sugda, and Havarizem. 15. On Erazahe and Sawahe, on Fradadafshu and Widdadafshu, on Waru Bareshte and Waru Jareshte, on this bright Karshwar of Swanaratha, the abode of cattle and the dwelling of cattle. The powerful Mithra looks with a health-bringing eye. 16. He who moves along all the Karshwars, a Gazata unseen, and brings glory, he who moves along all the Karshwars, a Gazata unseen, and brings sovereignty, and increases strength for victory to those who, with a pious intent, holily offer him libations. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 17. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, unto whom nobody must lie, neither the master of a house, nor the lord of a borough, nor the lord of a town, nor the lord of a province. 18. If the master of a house lies unto him, or the lord of a borough, or the lord of a town, or the lord of a province, then comes Mithra, angry and offended, and he breaks asunder the house, the borough, the town, the province, and the masters of the houses, the lords of the boroughs, the lords of the towns, the lords of the provinces, and the foremost men of the provinces. 19. On whatever side there is one who is lied unto Mithra, on that side Mithra stands forth, angry and offended, and his wrath is slow to relent. 20. Those who lie unto Mithra, however swift they may be running, cannot overtake, riding, cannot driving, cannot. The spear that the bow of Mithra flings darts backwards, for the number of the evil spells that the foe of Mithra works out. 21. And even though the spear be flung well, even though it reaches the body, it makes no wound, for the number of the evil spells that the foe of Mithra works out. The wind drives away the spear that the foe of Mithra flings, for the number of the evil spells that the foe of Mithra works out. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 22. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who takes out of distress the man who has not lied unto him, who takes him out of death. 23. Take us out of distress, take us out of distresses, O Mithra, as we have not lied unto thee. Thou bringest down terror upon the bodies of the men who lie unto Mithra. Thou takest away the strength from their arms, being angry and all-powerful. Thou takest the swiftness from their feet, the eyesight from their eyes, the hearing from their ears. 24. Not the wound of the well-sharpened spear of the flying arrow reaches the man to whom Mithra comes for help. With all the strength of his soul, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-seeing, undeceivable Mithra. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 25. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless, ever awake, who is lordly, deep, strong, and wheel-giving, a chief in assemblies, pleased with prayers, high, holily clever, the incarnate word, a warrior with strong arms. 26, who breaks the skulls of the Davas, and is most cruel and exacting pains, the punisher of the men who lie under Mithra, the withstander of the Pa'erikas, who, when not deceived, establisheth nations in supreme strength, who, when not deceived, establisheth nations in supreme victory. 27, who confounds the ways of the nations that delight in havoc, who turns away their glory, takes away their strength for victory, blows them away helpless, and delivers them unto 10,000 strokes. He of the 10,000 spies, all powerful, all seeing, undeceivable Mithra. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 28, we sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who upholds the columns of the lofty house and makes its pillars solid, who gives herds of oxen and male children to that house in which he has been satisfied. He breaks to pieces those in which he has been offended. 29, thou, O Mithra, art both bad and good to nations. Thou, O Mithra, art both bad and good to men. Thou, O Mithra, keepest in thy hands both peace and trouble for nations. Now, by bad and good, we don't mean righteousness and evilness. We mean, what is right isn't always positive for everybody, right? 30, thou makest houses large, beautiful with women, beautiful with chariots, with well-laid foundations, and high above their groundwork. Thou makest that house lofty, beautiful with women, beautiful with chariots, with well-laid foundations, and high above its groundwork, of which the master pious and holding libations in his hand offers thee a sacrifice, in which thou art invoked by thy own name and with proper words. (31) With a sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name with proper words, will I offer thee libations, O most powerful Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name with proper words, will I offer thee libations, O most beneficent Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name with proper words, will I offer thee libations, O thou undeceivable Mithra. 32. Listen to our sacrifices, O Mithra. Be thou pleased with our sacrifice, O Mithra. Come and sit at our sacrifice, accept our libations, accept them as they have been consecrated, gather them together with love, and lay them in the Garo Namana. 33. Grant us these boons which we beg of thee, O powerful God, in accordance with the words of revelation, namely riches, strength, and victory, good conscience and bliss, good fame and a good soul, wisdom, and the knowledge that gives happiness, the victorious strength given by Ahura, the crushing ascendant of Asha, Vahishta, and conversation with God on the holy word. Well, conversation with God, why do you need to pray to all these angels and stuff too? Oh, maybe you don't. It's just the tradition, right? 34, grant that we, in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy and a good spirit, may smite all our foes, that we, in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy and a good spirit, may smite all our enemies, that we, in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy and a good spirit, may smite all the malice of the Davas and Ben, the Yachts and the Pa'erikas of the oppressors, the blind and the deaf. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. And remember, Davas is the fire beams. In Arabic, they're called the jinn. The Yachts are the sorcerers, which is not exactly the thing, but anyways, the witches. And the Pa'erikas are the female entities, usually connected with stars or something. For his brightness and glory, I'll offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 35. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, victory-making, army governing, endowed with 1,000 senses, power-wielding, power possessing and all-knowing. 30, that was 35. 36, who sets the battle a-going, who stands against armies and battle, who, standing against armies and battle, breaks asunder the lines arrayed, the wings of the columns, gone to battle shake, and he throws terror upon the center of the havocking host. 37, he can bring and does bring down upon them distress and fear. He throws down the heads of those who lie to Mithra. He takes off the heads of those who lie unto Mithra. 38, sad is the abode unpeopled with children, where abide men who lie unto Mithra. And verily the fiendish killer of faithful men, the grazing cow, goes a sad straying way, driven along the vales of the Mithra Duges. They stand on the road, letting tears run over their chins. 39, their falcon-feathered arrows shot from the string of the well-bent flow fly towards the mark, and hit it not. As Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them, their spears well whetted and sharp, their long spears fly from their hands towards the mark, and hit it not. As Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. 40, their swords, while thrust and striking at the heads of men, hit not the mark. As Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. Their clubs, while falling and striking at the heads of men, hit not the mark. As Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. 41, Mithra strikes fear into them. Rashnu strikes a counter fear into them. The holy Sirozahs blows them away from every side towards the two Yasts, the maintainers of the world. They make the ranks of the army melt away. As Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, angry, offended, and unsatisfied, comes and meets them. 42, they cry unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, saying, O Mithra, thou, lord of wide pastures, here are our fiery horses taking us away as they flee from Mithra. Here are our sturdy arms cut to pieces by the sword, O Mithra. 43, and then Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, throws them to the ground, killing their 50s and their hundreds and their thousands and their tens of thousands, their tens of thousands and their myriad of myriads. So hundreds of millions. As Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, is angry and offended, for his brightness and glory I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 44, we sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, whose dwelling, wide as the earth, extends over the material world, large, unconfined, and bright, a far and wide extending abode. 45, whose 8 friends sit as spies for Mithra on all the heights, at all the watching places, observing the man who lies unto Mithra, looking at those, remembering those who have lied unto Mithra, regarding the ways of those whose life is sought by men who lie unto Mithra, and verily, by the fiendish killers of faithful men. 46, helping and guarding behind and guarding in front, Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, proves an undeceivable spy and watcher for the man to whom he comes to help with all the strength of his soul. He of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable God, for his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 47, we sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, a God of high renown and old age, whom wide-hoofed horses carry against havocking hosts, against enemies coming in battle array, in the strife of conflicting nations. 48, and when Mithra drives along toward the havocking host, towards the enemies coming in battle array, in the strife of the conflicting nations, then he binds the hands of those who have lied unto Mithra. He confounds their eyesight, he takes the hearing from their ears, they can no longer move their feet, they can no longer withstand those people, those foes, when Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, bears them ill will. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 49, we sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. 50, for whom the maker Ahura Mazda has built up a dwelling on the Hara Sirozahs, the bright mountain around which many stars revolve, were come neither night nor darkness, no cold wind and no hot wind, no deathful sickness, no uncleanness made by the Davos, and the clouds cannot reach up to the Hara-ete. Bareza. 51, a dwelling that all the Ameshaspentas, in one accord with the sun, made for him in the fullness of faith of a devoted heart, and he surveys the whole of the material world from the Haraite Pavreza, 52. And when there rushes a wicked worker of evil swiftly, with a swift step, Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, goes and yokes his horses to his chariot, along with for his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 53. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. 54. Who with hands lifted up ever cries unto Mazda, saying, I am the kind keeper of all creatures, I am the kind maintainer of all creatures, yet men worship me not with a sacrifice in which I am invoked by my own name, as they worship other gods with sacrifices in which they are invoked by their own names. I don't think God is the right, and God's is the right translation for that. Because these texts tend to only refer to Ahura Mazda as God. Maybe the word is angels, right? If men would 55. If men would worship me with a sacrifice in which I were invoked by my own name, as they worship the other Yasts with sacrifices in which they are invoked by their own names, then I would come to the faithful at the appointed time. I would come at the appointed time of my beautiful immortal life. 56. But the pious man holding libations in his hands does worship thee with a sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name and with proper words. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name with proper words will I offer the libations, O powerful Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name with proper words I will invoke thee. I will offer thee libations, O most beneficent Mithra. With the sacrifice in which thou art invoked by thy own name with the proper words will I offer thee libations, O thou undeceivable Mithra. 57. Listen to our sacrifice, O Mithra. Be thou pleased with our sacrifice, O Mithra. Come and set at our sacrifice, accept our libations, accept them as they have been consecrated, gather them together with love, and lay them in the Garo Namana, Garothman, i.e. heaven. 58. Grant us these boons, which we beg of thee, O powerful God, in accordance with the words of revelation, namely riches, strength, and victory, good conscience and bliss, good fame and a good soul, wisdom, and the knowledge that gives happiness, the victorious strength given by Ahura, the crushing ascendant of Asha Vahishta, and conversation with God on the holy word. 59. Grant that we, in a good spirit and high spirit, exalted in joy, and a good spirit, may smite all our foes, that we, in a good spirit, high spirit, exalted in joy, and a good spirit, may smite all our enemies, that we, in a good spirit and a high spirit, exalted in joy, and a good spirit, may smite all the malice of Davas and men, of the Yatus and the Paerikas, of the oppressors, the blind and the deaf. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 60. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, whose renown is good, whose shape is good, whose glory is good, and who has boons to give at his will, who has pasture fields to give at his will, harmless to the tiller of the ground, beneficent, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable God. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 61. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, firm-legged, a watcher fully awake, valiant, a chief in assemblies, making the waters flow forward, listening to appeals and making the waters run, and the plants grow up, ruling over the Karshwars, delivering, happy, undeceivable, endowed with many senses, a creature of wisdom. 62. We're going in sequence. I may have missed saying some of the numbers, but I read off the thing. Who gives neither strength nor vigor to him who is lied unto Mithra, who gives neither glory nor any boon to him who is lied unto Mithra. 63. Thou takest away the strength from their arms, being angry and all-powerful. Thou takest the swiftness from their feet, the eyesight from their eyes, the hearing from their ears. Not the wound of the well-sharpened spear or of the flying arrow reaches the man to whom Mithra comes for help with all the strength of his soul, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable God. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 64. We sacrifice unto Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who takes possession of the beautiful, wide expanding law, greatly and powerfully, and whose face looks over all the 7 Karshwars of the earth. 65. who is swift amongst the swift, liberal amongst the liberal, strong amongst the strong, a chief of assembly amongst the chiefs of assembly, increase giving, fatness giving, cattle giving, sovereignty giving, son giving, cheerfulness giving, and bliss giving. 66. With whom proceed Asher, Banguhe, and Porende on her light chariot. The awfully manly courage, the awfully kingly glory, the awful sovereign sky, the awful cursing thought of the wise, the awful vivacious of the faithful, and he who keeps united together the many faithful worshippers of Mazda. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 67. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who drives along on his high-wheeled chariot made of a heavenly substance from the Karshvara of Arizaheh to the Karshvara of Wanaratha, the bright one, accompanied by the wheel of sovereignty, the glory made by Mazda and the victory made by Ahura. 68, whose chariot is embraced by the great Asha, Vangohe, to whom the law of Mazda opens the way that he may go easily, whom 4 heavenly steeds, white shining, seen afar, beneficent, endowed with knowledge, swiftly carry along the heavenly space, while the cursing thought of the wise pushes it forward. 69, from whom all the Davas unseen and the Varenya fiends flee away in fear. Oh, may we never fall across the rush of the angry Lord, who goes and rushes from 1,000 sides against his foe, he of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable God. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 70. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, before whom Varethragna, made by Ahura, runs opposing the foes in the shape of a boar, a sharp-toothed he-boar, a sharp-jawed boar that kills at one stroke, pursuing, wrathful, with a dripping face, strong, with iron feet, iron forepaws, iron weapons, and an iron tail, iron jaws. Kind of like an iron, well, lion too, not just a boar. 71. Who eagerly clinging to the fleeing flow, along with manly courage, smites the foe in battle, and does not think he has smitten him, nor does he consider it a blow, till he has smitten away the marrow, and the column of life, the marrows, and the spring of existence. 72. He cuts all the limbs to pieces, and mingles together with the earth, the bones, hair, brains, and blood of the men who have lied unto Mithra. For his brightness and glory we offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 73. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who with the hands lifted up, rejoicing, cries out, speaking thus. 74. O Ahura Mazda, most beneficent spirit, maker of the material world, thou holy one, if men would worship me with a sacrifice in which I were invoked by my own name, as they worship other gods with sacrifices in which they are invoked by their own names, then should I come to the faithful at the appointed time, I should come in the appointed time of my beautiful immortal life. 75. May we keep our field. May we never be exiles from our field, exiles from our house, exiles from our borough, exiles from our town, exiles from our country. 76. Thou dashest in pieces the malice of the malicious, the malice of the men of malice. Dash thou in pieces the killers of the faithful men. Thou hast good horses, thou hast a good chariot, thou art bringing help at every appeal, and art powerful. 77. I will pray unto thee for help with many consecrations, with good consecrations of libations, with many offerings, with good offerings of libations, that we, abiding in thee, may long inhabit a good abode, full of all the riches that can be wished for. 78. Thou keepest those nations that tender a good worship to Mithra, Lord of wide pastures. Thou dashest in pieces those that delight in havoc. Unto thee will I pray for help. May he come to us for help, the awful, most powerful Mithra, the worshipful and praiseworthy, glorious Lord of nations. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 79. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who made a dwelling for Rashnu, and to whom Rashnu gave all his soul for long friendship. 80. Thou art the keeper and protector of the dwelling of those who lie not. Thou art the maintainer of those who lie not. With thee hath Varathragna, made by Ahura, contracted the best of all friendships, and thus it is how many men who have lied unto Mithra, even privily, lie smitten down on the ground. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 81. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who made a dwelling for Rashnu, and to whom Rashnu gave all his soul for long friendship. 82. To whom Ahura Mazda gave 1,000 senses and 10,000 eyes to see. With those eyes and those senses he watches the man who injures Mithra, the man who lies unto Mithra. Through those eyes and those senses he is undeceivable. He of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, the all-knowing, undeceivable God, for his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 83. We have sacrificed unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, whom the lord of the country invokes for help with hands uplifted, whom the lord of the town invokes for help with hands uplifted. 84. Whom the lord of the borough invokes for help with hands uplifted, whom the master of the house invokes for help with hands uplifted, whom the in danger of death invokes for help with hands uplifted, whom the poor man who follows the good law when wronged and deprived of his rights invokes for help with hands uplifted. 85. The voice of his wailing reaches up to the sky. It goes over the earth all around. It goes over the 7 Karshwars, whether he utters his prayer in a low tone of voice or aloud. 86. The cow driven astray invokes him for help, longing for the stables. When will that bull, Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, bring us back and make us reach the stables? When will he turn us back to the right way from the den of the Druge where we were driven? 87. And to him whom Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, has been satisfied, he comes with help. And of him with whom Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, has been offended, he crushes down the house, the borough, the town, the province, the country. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 88. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, to whom the enlivening, healing, fair, lordly, golden-eyed Haoma, opium, feta, marijuana, and according to one recipe, 37 other plants, offered up a sacrifice on the highest heights, on the Haraete Baresa, he, the undefiled, to one undefiled, with undefiled Baresma, undefiled libations, and undefiled words. 89. Whom the holy Ahura Mazda has established as a priest, quick in performing the sacrifice, and loud in song. He performed the sacrifice with a loud voice, as a priest, quick in sacrifice, and loud in song, a priest to Ahura Mazda, a priest to the Ameshaspentus. His voice reached up to the sky, went over the earth all around, went over the 7 Keshwars. 90. Who first lifted up Haomos, in a mortar inlaid with stars and made of a heavenly substance. Ahura Mazda longed for him, the Ameshaspentus longed for him, for the well-slappen body of him, whom the swift horse sun awakes for prayer from afar. 91. Hail to Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, who has 1,000 ears and 10,000 eyes. Thou art worthy of sacrifice and prayer. Mayest thou have sacrifice and prayer in the houses of men. Hail to the man who shall offer thee a sacrifice, with the holy wood in his hand, the Baresma in his hand, the holy meat in his hand, the holy mortar in his hands, with his hands well washed, with the mortar well washed, with the bundles of Baresma tied up, the Haoma uplifted, and the Ahuna Ba'irya sung through. 92. The holy Ahura Mazda confessed that religion, and so did Mohu Manu, so did Asha Bahishta, and so did Kshathra Ba'irya, so did Spenta Armaete, so did Ha'urvatat and Amaratat, and all the Ameshaspentas longed for and confessed his religion. The kind Mazda conferred upon him the mastership of the world, and so did they. who saw thee amongst all creatures, the right Lord and Master of the world, the best cleanser of these creatures. 93. So mayest thou in both worlds, mayest thou keep us in both worlds, O Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, both in this material world and in the world of the spirit, from the fiend of death, from the fiend Ashma, from the fiendish hordes that lift up the spear of havoc, from the onsets of Ashma, wherein the evil-doing Ashma rushes along with Vidotu, made by the Davas. 93. So smitest thou, O Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, give swiftness to our teams, strength our own bodies, that we may watch with full success those who hate us, smite down our foes, and destroy at one stroke our adversaries, our enemies, and those who hate us. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 95. We sacrifice unto Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who goes over the earth all her breadth over, and after the setting of the sun touches both ends of this wide round earth, whose ends lie afar, and surveys everything that is between the earth and the heavens. 96. Swinging in his hands a club with 100 knots, 100 edges, that rushes forwards and fells men down. A club cast out of red brass, of strong golden brass, the strongest of all weapons, the most victorious of all weapons. 97. From whom Engra Ma'inu, who is all death, flees away in fear, from whom Ashma, the evil-doing Hashotanu, flees away in fear, from whom the long-handed Bushyasta flees away in fear, from whom all the Davas unseen and the Varenya fiend flies away in fear. 98. Oh, may we never fall across the rush of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, when in anger. May Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, never smite us in his anger. He who stands up upon this earth as the strongest of all the gods, the most valiant of all the gods, the most energetic of all gods, the swiftest of all gods, the most fiend-smiting of all gods, he, Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. And by gods, I'm sure they mean angels of particular things, right? Or maybe spirits of things. 99. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, from whom all the Davas unseen and the Vrenya fiends fly away in fear. The Lord of nations, Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, drives forward at the right side of this wide, round earth, whose ends lie afar. 100. At his right hand drives the good, holy Sraosha. At his left hand drives the tall and strong Rashnu. On all sides around him drive the waters, the plants, and the farashes of the faithful. 101. At his might, he ever brings to them falcon-feathered arrows, and when driving, he himself comes there. Where are the nations? Enemy to Mithra, he first and foremost strikes blows with his club on the horse and his rider. He throws fear and fright upon the horse and his rider. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. One of the things that we are coming across here is, like at the beginning, this hatred of beings. Why can't we just hate certain, actions, certain beliefs? 102. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, the warrior of the white horse, of the sharp spear, the long spear, the quick arrows, foreseeing and clever. That kind of reminds me of the whole Kalki avatar thing. 103. Whom Ahura Mazda has established to maintain and look over all this moving world, and who maintains and looks over all this moving world, who, never sleeping, wakefully guards the creation of Mazda, who never sleeping, wakefully maintains the creation of Mazda. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 104. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, whose long arms, strong with Mithra's strength, encompass what he seizes in the easternmost river, and what he beats with the westernmost river, what is by the Snaka of the Ranga, and what is by the boundary of the earth. 105. And thou, O Mithra, encompassing all this around, do thou reach it all over with thy arms. The man without glory, led astray from the right way, grieves in his heart. The man without glory thinks thus in himself, that careless Mithra does not see all the evil that is done, nor all the lies that are told. 106. But I think thus in my heart, should the evil thoughts of the earthly man be 100 times worse, they would not rise so high as the good thoughts of the heavenly Mithra. Should the evil words of the earthly man be 100 times worse, it would not rise so high as the good words of the heavenly Mithra. Should the evil deeds of the earthly man be 100 times worse, they would not rise so high as the good deeds of the heavenly Mithra. 107. Should heavenly wisdom in the earthly man be 100 times greater, it would not rise so high as the heavenly wisdom in the heavenly Mithra. And thus, should the ears of the earthly man hear 100 times better, he would not hear so well as the heavenly Mithra, whose ear hears well, who has 1,000 senses and sees every man that tells a lie. Mithra stands up in his strength. He drives in the awfulness of royalty and sends from his eyes beautiful looks that shine from afar, saying, 108. Who will offer me a sacrifice? Who will lie unto me? Who thinks me a god worthy of good sacrifice? Who thinks me worthy only of a bad sacrifice? To whom shall I in my might impart brightness and glory? To whom bodily health? To whom shall I in my might impart riches and full weal? Whom shall I bless by raising him a virtuous offspring? 109. To whom shall I give in return, without his thinking of it, the awful sovereignty beautifully arrayed with many armies and most perfect in the sovereignty of an all-powerful tyrant, who fells down heads, valiant, smiting, and unsmitten, who orders chastisement to be done, and his order is done at once, which he has ordered in his anger. O Mithra, when thou art offended and not satisfied, he soothes thy mind and makes Mithra satisfied. 110. To whom shall I in my might impart sickness and death? To whom shall I impart poverty and sterility? Of whom shall I at one stroke cut off the offspring? 111. From whom shall I take away without his thinking of it the awful sovereignty beautifully arrayed with many armies and the most perfect, the sovereignty of an all-powerful tyrant, who fells down heads, valiant, smiting, and unsmitten, who orders chastisement to be done, and his order is done at once, which he has ordered in his anger. O Mithra, while thou art satisfied and not angry, he moves thy heart to anger and makes Mithra unsatisfied. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 112. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, a warrior with a silver helm, a gold cuirass, who kills with the poniard, strong, valiant, lord of the borough. Bright are the ways of Mithra, by which he goes towards the country. When wishing well, he turns its plains and vales to pasture grounds. 113. And then cattle and males come to graze, as many as he wants. May Mithra and Ahura, the high gods, come to us for help. When the poniard lifts up its voice aloud, when the nostrils of the horses quiver, when the strings of the bows whistle and shoot sharp arrows, Then the brood of those whose libations are hated fall smitten to the ground with their hair torn off. 114. So mayest thou, O Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, give swiftness to our teams, strength to our own bodies, and that we may watch with full success those who hate us, smite down our foes, and destroy at one stroke our adversaries, our enemies, and those who hate us. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 115. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. O Mithra, Lord of wide pastures, thou, master of the house, of the borough, of the town, of the country, thou, Zarathustrotema. 116. Mithra is 20-fold between two friends or two relations. Mithra is 30-fold between two men of the same group. Mithra is 40-fold between two partners. Mithra is 50-fold between wife and husband. Mithra is 60-fold between two pupils of the same master. Mithra is 70-fold between the pupil and his master. Mithra is 80-fold between the son-in-law and his father-in-law. Mithra is 90-fold between two brothers. 117. Mithra is 100-fold between the father and the son. Mithra is 1,000-fold between two nations. Mithra is 10,000-fold when connected with the law of Mazda. Then he will be every day of victorious strength. 118. May I come unto thee with a prayer that goes lowly or goes highly, as this sun rises up above the Hara Barazaite and then fills its career. So may I, O Spitma, with a prayer that goes lowly or goes highly, rise up above the will of the fiend Engra Ma'inu. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. Well, we notice the going high reference of the angelic and going low for the other, or something going, leaping over the demonic. 119. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. Offer up a sacrifice unto Mithra, O Spitma, and order thy peoples to do the same. Let the worshipper of the Mazda sacrifice unto thee with small cattle, with black cattle, flying birds, gliding forward on wings. 120. To Mithra, all the faithful worshippers of Mazda must give strength and energy with offered and proffered ha'omas, which the Sa'otar proffers unto him and gives in sacrifice. Let the faithful man drink of the libations cleanly prepared, which if he offers them unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, Mithra will be pleased with him and without anger. 121. Zarathustra asked him, O Ahura Mazda, how shall the faithful man drink the libations cleanly prepared, which if he does, and he offers them unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, Mithra will be pleased with him, and without anger. 122. Ahura Mazda answered, Let them wash their bodies 3 days and 3 nights. Let them undergo 30 strokes for the sacrifice and prayer unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. Let them wash their bodies 2 days and 2 nights. Let them undergo 20 strokes for the sacrifice and prayer unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. Let no man drink of these libations who does not know the Staota Yesnya Vispe Rotavo. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 123. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, to whom Ahura Mazda offered up a sacrifice in the shining Garo Namana. 124. With his arms lifted up towards immortality, Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, strides forward from the shining Garo Namana in the beautiful chariot that drives on, ever swift, adorned with all sorts of ornaments and made of gold. And 125 to the end, 145 is the program that I'm replacing because for some reason it uploaded the wrong file a ways ago and no one ever said anything. 125, 4 stallions draw that chariot, all the same white color, living on heavenly food and undying. The hooves of their forefeet are shod with gold, the hooves of their hind feet are shod with silver. All are yoked to the same pole, and where the yoke and crossbeams of the yoke, fastened with hooks of Shatra Vairya to a beautiful 126. At his right hand drives Rashnu Razishta, the most beneficent and most well-shapen. At his left hand drives the upright Chista, the Holy One, bearing libations in her hands, clothed with white clothes and white herself. And the cursing thought of the law of Mazda, 127. Close by him drives the strong cursing thought of the wise man, opposing foes in the shape of a boar, a sharp-toothed he-boar, a sharp-jawed boar that kills at one stroke. Pursuing wrathful, with a dripping face, strong and swift to run, and rushing all around. Behind him drives a tar, all in a blaze, and awful kingly glory. 128. On a side of the chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands 1,000 bows well made. With a string of cowgut, they go through the heavenly space. They fall through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. 129. On a side of the chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands 1,000 vulture feathered arrows, with the golden mouth, with the horn shaft, with the brass tail, and well made. They go through the heavenly space. They fall through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. 130. On a side of the chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands 1,000 spears well made and sharp piercing. They go through the heavenly space. They fall through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. On the side of the chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands 1,000 steel hammers, two-edged, well made. They go through the heavenly space. They fall through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. 131. On a side of the chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands 1,000 swords, two-edged and well made. They go through the heavenly space. They fall through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. On the side of a chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands 1,000 maces of iron well made. They go through the heavenly space. They fall through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. 132. On the side of a chariot of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, stands a beautiful, well-falling club with 100 knots, 100 edges, that rushes forward and fells men down, a club cast of red brass, of strong golden brass, the strongest of all weapons, the most victorious of all weapons. It goes through the heavenly space. It falls through the heavenly space upon the skulls of the Davas. 133. After he has smitten the Davas, after he has smitten down the men who lie in the Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, drives forward through Arizaheh and Sabaheh, through Radadafshu and Vidadafshu, through Boru Bereshte and Vauru Jereshte. Through this are Karshvare, the bright, Havenuratha, 134. Engram Enu, who is all death, flees away in fear. Ashma, the evil-doing Pachotanu, flees away in fear. The long-handed Bushyasta flees away in fear. All Davas unseen and the Varenya fiends fly away in fear. 135. Oh, may we never fall across the rush of Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, when in anger. May Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, never smite us in his anger. He who stands up upon this earth is the strongest of all gods, the most valiant of all gods, the most energetic of all gods, the swiftest of all gods, the most fiend-smiting of all gods, be Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, or he, Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 136. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the Lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, for whom white stallions, yoked to his chariot, draw it on one golden wheel, with a full shining axle. 137. If Mithra takes his libations to his own dwelling, happy that man, I think, said Ahura Mazda. O holy Zarathustra, probably Zarathustra, for whom a holy priest as pious as any in the world, who is the Word incarnate, offers up a sacrifice unto Mithra with bundles of Baresma, and with the proper words, straight to the man, I think, will Mithra come to visit his dwelling. 138. When Mithra's boons will come to him as he follows God's teaching, and who thinks according to God's teaching, woe to that man, I think, said Ahura Mazda. O holy Zarathustra, for whom an unholy priest, not pious, who is not the word incarnate, stands behind the Baresma. However full may be the bundles of Baresma he ties, however long may be the sacrifice he performs. 139. He does not delight Ahura Mazda, nor the other Ameshaspentas, nor Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, he who thus scorns Mazda and the other Ameshaspentas, and Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, and the law, and Rashnu, and Arstat, makes the world grow, makes the world increase. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 140. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake. I will offer up a sacrifice unto the good Mithra of Spitama, unto the strong heavenly God, who is foremost, highly merciful and peerless, whose house is above the stout and strong warrior. 141. Victorious and armed with the well-fashioned weapon, watchful in darkness and undeceivable, he is the stoutest of the stoutest. He is the strongest of the strongest. He is the most intelligent of the gods. He is victorious and endowed with glory. He of 10,000 eyes, of the 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable God. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 142. We sacrifice unto Mithra, lord of wide pastures, sleepless and ever awake, who with his manifold knowledge powerfully increases the creation of Spenta Ma'inu, and is a well-created and most great Gazata, self-shining like the moon when he makes his own body shine. 143. Whose face is flashing with light like the face of the star Striya, whose chariot is embraced by that goddess who is foremost among those who have no deceit in them. O Spitama, who is fairer than any creature in the world, and full of light to shine, I will worship that chariot, wrought by the maker Ahura Mazda, inlaid with stars and made of heavenly substance. The chariot of Mithra, who has 10,000 spies, the powerful, all-knowing, undeceivable God. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard. 144. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, who is truth-speaking, a chief in assemblies, with 1,000 ears, well-shapen, with 1,000 eyes, high with full knowledge, strong, sleepless, and ever awake. We sacrifice unto the Mithra around countries. We sacrifice unto the Mithra within countries. We sacrifice unto the Mithra in this country. We sacrifice unto the Mithra above countries. We sacrifice unto the Mithra under countries. We sacrifice unto the Mithra before countries. We sacrifice unto the Mithra behind countries. And its formulas like this: around, within, in this, above, under, before, behind stuff, where we get our modern pentagram and other sort of rituals from it. You know, it relates to formulas like this that were said around the world. 145. We sacrifice unto Mithra and Ahura, the two great, imperishable, holy gods, and unto the stars and the moon and the sun, with the trees that yield up Baresma. We sacrifice unto Mithra, the lord of all countries. For his brightness and glory, I will offer him a sacrifice worth being heard, namely unto Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, Gyatha Ahuva Ario, the will of the Lord is the law of holiness. I bless the sacrifice and power and the strength of vigor of Mithra, the lord of wide pastures, who has 1,000 ears, 10,000 eyes, the Gazata invoked by his own name, and that of Rama Avastra. Hashem Bohu, holiness is the best of all good. Give unto the man brightness and glory. Give him the bright, all happy, blissful abode of the holy ones. Now, I do believe that this kind of relates to real tradition, you could say, as far as what actually happened with Zarathustra, but particularly since this is something later, and how it compares to some stuff, I do think it also blended in just Aryan religion. So it blended in the polytheism that was before with the story of Zarathustra, who acknowledged the existence of these beings, communicated with them when they appeared, but there's reason to think that he didn't actually worship them themselves. And when I read some of these things, I'm not intending that, oh, I'm praying to this angel and that angel. No, that's absolutely not my intention. I'm not doing, that's not the consciousness I'm putting behind it at all, but I am sharing these things and saying how they were. And some people think of the light face and the dark face of the same thing. We refer to the archangels. We refer to the morning prayers in this hymn. Mithra takes the place of Indra, delivering the cows that were taken by Vritra. And Yaokshte is related to Neoshidan and the Pahlavi Nayok Shitan, to hear. Which is generally translated as 1,000 ears or 1,000 hearings. And we have the Rashnu, the genius of truth. The Mithra Drujas kind of makes you think of the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas. And four paws, the hands, you know, back in verse 70. And the pursuing, Anu Poithwa, Raninishan, and from Persia, definitely the other side of the world would be the Americas, right? So the Western, the Razahik, Peshawar, and Thratara, Astara, fear striking. Ithia in Latin is anta, so we're having the reference to the pillars. And not the wound, we might read Shramayo or Shanamaoyo, Shanmaoyo. And three classes: Apeya inte, Frastan ba inte, Frameya inte, are soldiers, footmen, horsemen, chariotmen. So, you know, they basically three of the divisions of things, but we have four of them, right? So how do we combine the two? Maybe soldiers and footmen would be combined in the first. The lake regions, Sistan, Faristan, Azerbaijan, are referred to. We refer to the country with the large rivers in the east. Moru is Marv, Margiana, with the Mungab River the Margus. Haroyu is the Herat country, with Harabrud, Gaba Sugda, and Avarism are Sogdiana, and Khwarizm with the Oxus. You know, we're thinking of modern day Afghanistan next to in the mix too. So the country names aren't the same as they were back in the day. The Mithra Druge is the one who breaks the contract. Jag Ha'urva Ungem is translated as the one with the most arms. Balish the Bujam. Jagauru is translated the same way. And that about covers it.